Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome back to another Walking Dead video. So I wanted to talk about the ending scene of episode 1 of The Walking Dead Daryl Dixon because there's a connection to Rick Grimes here that does get very, very interesting for the overall Walking Dead universe, and they're actually setting up some stuff here that honestly is stuff that I've theorized about over the last, I would say, year or two, but they're actually really getting into this right now, and the connections here honestly are things that I never really thought would happen, and it's actually really exciting overall. And I actually do wonder if Carol is in France right now, or at least in Spain, because it kind of seems like it. So yeah, we're going to talk about all of this here. So before we go any further, obviously make sure to be a subscriber if you want to get all my Walking Dead content like this. I'm going to be doing a trailer breakdown after this, and we'll talk about everything in that trailer. And there's apparently supposed to be a Rick and Michonne teaser later on tonight. So I will do a video on that as well if that does drop. Tomorrow I will be doing a Carol video, so stay tuned for that because I do believe she is actually in Spain. I think she actually may have been with Daryl on that ship. So yeah, there's a lot to talk about here. So the ending scene, honestly, when it happened, I was really, really surprised by it. I was not expecting that at all. I thought the episode was likely going to end with the Cauldron scene, and then we get a shot to Le Havre, which I probably am butchering that name, but it's the port in France that Daryl, Isabel, and everyone else is trying to get to right now. And we see a new character here that goes by the name of Madame Genet, and she is the new villain. She's like the ultimate villain of this place. She has a lot of power. Think of her in the sense of, unless we hear otherwise, but it seems like she sort of has as much power as Major General Beale does with the CRM. She seems to be in that position here in this place. And Isabel, again, early in the episode mentions that there's rumors of ships coming in and out of this port here. You hear something like that, and immediately I was like, okay, that's really exciting. That could be a connection here. Like, if there's ships leaving in and out of this place, like that has to be a ship coming from America. And then we hear at the end that actually that's literally what happened. Daryl was on this ship from America and then jumped off at some point near France. And we'll talk about exactly where, because it was actually in the Gulf of Cadiz, I believe, if I'm saying that right. And yeah, there's a lot here. So the Gulf of Cadiz, again, I could be saying that wrong. If I am, I really do apologize. But that is where this ship was located when the prisoners escaped. And if you actually watch the scene, it's the first line of dialogue that is mentioned. And it is something that is very, very easy to overlook. But what's mentioned is when the prisoners escaped, and it's mentioned prisoners. And so you got to be wondering, at least I'm wondering, when they say prisoners, does that mean Daryl and Carol? Because, I mean, first of all, it's a reference to Daryl and other prisoners, right? But was Carol on that ship too? I'm going to be doing a video on that tomorrow because I do think she was. It makes a lot of sense. I mean, unless Carol's taking another ship from America to France, but I think it makes sense that Daryl would take Carol on a ship like that if there was proof that Rick was alive in some way. Like something big like that, obviously Carol would come along, right? And then Carol at some point just got lost. They got separated. I think it makes a lot of sense. Like, Daryl ended up in this place here. Carol is just somewhere else. And yeah, again, we'll talk about that in a video tomorrow, but I really do think that makes a lot of sense. But the Gulf of Cadiz is just below Spain and Portugal, which, first of all, I will say is a very, very amazing reference to Rick Grimes' brother, Jeffrey Grimes, in the comic. He actually dies, I think it's near Barcelona, or they're going to Barcelona, but they're in Spain for sure. So I'm pretty sure they are in Barcelona, but that's actually very close to where Daryl is right now. So just in general, this reference, like, to being in this region is just very, very cool, because obviously comic fans are going to get excited about that. I don't think they're going to introduce Rick Grimes' brother here on the show, but if they wanted to, they could. Like, they could actually make the connection right now if they wanted to, but I mean, I don't know. But in the Gulf here of this region, Daryl actually escaped and somehow ended up near France, which is, like I said, very, very close by. We do learn at this port, Madame Genet has a lot of control and sort of, you know, is really, I guess, just has a lot of control over what's being delivered and etc. And we learn in this scene that there's actual experiments being done on walkers, and we don't know the motivations yet. It could be to find a cure, but based off of the trailer, it seems like they're trying to create weapons in some way. Again, it could be partly to find a cure as well, but it seems like they're trying to create weapons, because there's burners that Daryl ran into in episode 1, which was obviously the post-credit scene of World Beyond. And we saw that there was obviously tests being done. There were scientists who worked at that lab and whatnot. So it seems like the burners are the walkers that are basically failed experiments this walker here that was in the trailer that's actually running at Daryl seems to be an experiment that is very, very successful. So, yeah, obviously very exciting to see that, right? And again, this ship came from America. So this ship was delivering, it seems like, walkers obviously to a place in France or vice versa. Like there's obviously some sort of like importing and exporting of these walkers, and there seems to be like a sharing of this information between France and America, right? Like there's walkers in all of these crates here. There's actually a shot in the trailer, and I'm going to talk about this more in the trailer, but it's kind of relevant here. There's a shot of this walker, and it's really, really aggressive, running at Daryl, and it seems like breaks out of the wall here. So it seems like they are holding these walkers, you know, obviously here, and one of them gets out and obviously attacks Daryl. So what gets very, very interesting here for me personally is the fact that this ship came from America, because I do think this makes a lot of sense. Like if you just think about it logically, like this ship was literally in America with these walkers that were here, right? Like what, these walkers are just all of a sudden let loose, and you know what I mean? Like, no, these walkers make a lot of sense. You look at the trailer, these walkers were created. They were created, it seems like, by Madame Genet and obviously her scientists and all of that. And I think there is a connection with the Civic Republic, because why would these walkers be in America? Like, it just makes no sense at all. So this ship came from America, and Daryl obviously was on it, and possibly Carol as well, right? So the question I have is, what if this ship departed from Maine? And the reason why that's very important is because of the Tales of the Walking Dead episode that aired a year ago or 2 years ago. And we saw the reference to the triple P card, because the character in that episode found this triple P card. And again, this has been a mystery for a long time. The triple P card goes back to season 7 of The Walking Dead. And obviously the introduction of Jadis and a lot of the stuff there that was sort of a connection eventually to the Civic Republic, right? So there's this triple P card that's here. We know that character was in Maine. It makes sense, I think, if Daryl and maybe Carol, if they went to Maine looking for Rick and they found this card or whatever, and then at some point got on this ship. And so the triple P card mystery that's really been a mystery for many, many years could be getting explained right now, finally, right? So I think that is the connection right there between Madame Genet and obviously the Civic Republic here, or the CRM. I do want to stress that a little bit more. Like the Civic Republic, I think generally is a good place to be. It's more the military that is evil. Like the Civic Republic has 200,000 people. There's no way all of them are like crazy evil, right? Like it makes no sense. It's the military. And the military, I think, has a lot more power here. And obviously like they make up a lot of the rules and whatnot. It's just the actual, like, most of the people there are most likely good people. It's probably a good place overall to stay at, but it's the military that obviously have so much control here. And I mean, obviously there's so much about this place that we need to learn more about, but we're going to learn a lot more about that, obviously, in the Rick and Michonne show. And we know that the CRM does tests, right? Like they're testing walkers. They're trying to find a cure. The post-credit scene in World Beyond told us that there were conferences in Ohio, first of all, where the Commonwealth is located. Scientists from France were there. I believe it was like the Primrose team or something like that. And it seems like they returned via these ships here. And the man in that scene that killed that woman seems to be connected to Madame Genet, which I believe is the link between the CRM and Madame Genet, right? Like it has to do with the cure and experimentation on walkers. And that seems to be overall the goal here with, you know, the CRM and, or I guess the military of the Civic Republic and Madame Genet and her group and all of that. Like these crazy, you know, organizations that have so much power in the world. I guess it makes sense. Like they're going to be so just obsessed with ideas like this. Like the walkers are ruling the world. How can we, you know, get more power here so our lives don't change and whatnot, right? And so they start to use this as weapons. It's just, it makes sense. Like this is sort of where the world would go, right? Like the old government would start to do things like this. And I think that's exactly what is happening here, because we do have confirmation that the CRM was formed early on in the apocalypse from the old government. And I think it gets really, really interesting when you think about the fact that Daryl messed up Madame Genet and her group's research. Rick and Michonne are likely going to mess up the CRM's research as well. And I think this is how these characters become very important to the world, right? Because that's one of the things, right? Like the Civic Republic, like they're so big, like they have this giant city or giant whatever of 200,000 people. And you have Madame Genet, she has so much power over, you know, almost all communities in France. And it's like, how does Daryl become important to her? How does Rick and Michonne become important to the Civic Republic, right? And it's because of this stuff here, right? And obviously with Rick, there's some Jada stuff there as well. But it's really, really interesting. It's really, honestly, like, this is really insane how everything overall is connecting here. It really does feel like the Triple P card is finally going to be explained. I think Daryl and possibly Carol got very, very close to finding Rick Grimes, or at least discovering the CRM. They got on this ship, they thought it was connected, and then at some point ended up in France. And I think that's why Daryl, you know, he's not that surprised that he was there. He probably wonders if Rick is actually there, right? Like, he's probably wondering about that, and he's just learning about a different aspect to this, right? And so I really like the story that is being fleshed out right now. I'm a big fan of everything happening right now in France, and I really, like, people are wondering, like, why have Daryl in France? Why does this make any sense at all? I think Scott Gimple is making a point right now that this is actually very, very important to the overall world. And we're starting to see the connection here, right? Like, this ending cliffhanger scene, like, this is a big connection to Rick Grimes and the CRM, and is a very, very important scene overall, I think, for, I guess, the Walking Dead universe. And I can't wait to see where they go this season. I'm so excited for Rick and Michonne. I really, like, just thinking of the world overall, they're really, really expanding here, and it's just overall so exciting. And I will say, I asked a question on Twitter, and I didn't mean it in any way as like a sort of an insult to Dead City at all. I really did it because I'm just curious. I asked on Twitter which had the better premiere, and it's just as of now, it's literally as of what, 30 minutes ago, I think I posted this, and there's like 98 votes, and Daryl Dixon is overwhelmingly winning. Like, it's, people think that it is the better premiere of the two shows, and so I kind of feel like, you know, I almost have to agree. The story here for Daryl Dixon seems so much more important, right? Like, that's the thing. I thought this was just Daryl in France. A lot of it was not connected. We see a scene like this, and I'm like, there's so much connection. Like, and I could actually see how Daryl could lead the Walking Dead universe. This show really does prove it to me. Like, there is a way. It's so easy. And so if you're Maggie and Negan, you know, I feel like you're definitely going to want, or I guess if you're the actors, like, you're going to want a better story for season 2, I feel like, right? Like, I really like the story, obviously. Like the story for Dead City was really great, and I really like season 1. It's just the importance overall, like, yeah, I think they're going to want more connection here. And I mean, obviously us fans are going to love that, right? So I hope that they do that. And yeah, we'll have to wait and see. But I'm going to leave it here. Definitely post all your thoughts down below. What do you think of episode 1? Hope you guys all enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.